Welcome back, WNST, Towson, Baltimore, and WNST.net. We are on Radio Row. We're in Miami Beach. Luke Jones joining us here. Strange doings for the beginning of a Super Bowl week. And I think we realized when we were eating the lomo saltado at the Peruvian restaurant here when Kobe Bryant, the tragedy and the news and TMZ and is it real and his daughter and then the stories come out to belly. And I think on a Monday where everyone comes here to talk football and make fun of the Pro Bowl and do all the things that we usually do, even when all of our players are in it, been a little different this time around early in the week as people come in. I mean, a lot of media members wearing Lakers hats, you know, and some of them just happen to have them with them, right? I mean, you can go out and buy one last night.
I mean, this is a story that goes so far beyond basketball. I think it goes beyond sports when you look at it from a cultural standpoint. I mean, you had the Grammys at the Staples Center on Sunday night. I mean, this is a story that affects a lot of people, and you didn't have to know Kobe Bryant or even Kobe Bryant be your favorite player to be impacted by that. I mean, I think just the story of him being with his daughter on their way to a travel basketball game. I mean, who can't relate to that in some way? A parent and a child, whether your mom or dad coached you at some point or they just took the time to come to your games. I mean, I think there's parts to this story that are so relatable in that way. And then when you consider
he died being a parent,
right, exactly. And then when you consider his impact on the game of basketball and where he ranks among the all-time greats, and I think it's interesting. We talked a little bit about this off the air as far as where Kobe Bryant ranks from a competitive drive, just an obsession with winning. He's probably the closest that we've seen to come to Michael Jordan since then. I mean, keep in mind, Jordan hasn't played a meaningful game in the NBA, not counting the Wizards years, in over 20 years. Kobe came the closest to that in terms of the competitive drive. I wouldn't put Kobe on the same level as LeBron James, but he's not too far off there. But again, you're talking about such an iconic figure from an NBA standpoint, from a basketball standpoint. Well, he didn't play in
San Antonio either. No offense to our friends from San Antonio.
I mean,
that's the other part of the Mickey Mantle part of, playing for the Lakers. And I guess the part that we never saw was that Kareem Abdul-Jabbar and Magic Johnson and all the other Lakers are still alive, right? To talk about this.
Yeah, and I mean, this is just so shocking. I mean, it's funny you mentioned Magic Johnson. I mean, you do think back to the early 90s when it was revealed that he had HIV.
Oh, yeah.
And
remember where I was that night.
What everyone thought that meant for him at that point in time, who would have thought nearly 30 years later that, by all accounts, he's alive, he's healthy, he's still energetic and does plenty of things, but just the shocking finality of it. And again, there's the human part of this where if someone who's a few years removed from what's going to be a Hall of Fame, iconic career, they're going to put a statue of him outside Staples Center. There's no question about that. And certainly there's an off-court part of the conversation that
I'm shocked by how many people took pictures with him.
Yeah.
I just, I didn't realize he was such an accessible guy.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? I always saw him as rolling in the back, like the way we would see people here at Radio Row, where that Kobe lived in a Michael Jackson kind of a world, especially in L.A., where he did take helicopters in and out.
Sure.
And people didn't bump into Kobe in the restaurant or whatever so I was just kind of shocked at how many people he touched, because he was more like a rock star than like a basketball player, right?
Well, and it's interesting you mentioned that, because I was reading some columns, some pieces late Sunday night, just people reflecting on it, and I believe it was Charles Barkley who said that Kobe didn't let his guard down with a lot of people. I think he met a lot of people. He interacted with a lot of people.
He was a celebrity when he was 13, but his dad played too.
Sure. And you think about how his upbringing in that regard, and the fact that he goes from high school, this Philadelphia kid, straight to the NBA, all the doubts there for a number of years. And
that's why 12 teams passed on him.
Yeah. Well, I mean, and it's one of those arguments that's still talked about as far as kids going right to the NBA and one and done and all that kind of stuff. But I think and I will give Chris Pica credit for bringing this up, unlike Michael Jordan, who is still so very careful, even in his post-playing career. I mean, he's an owner now. You don't see Michael put himself out there very much, where it seems like Kobe Bryant, post-playing career, to your point, put himself out there a little bit more.
Well, I mean, he shows up on my timeline with his daughter. I mean, the last time I saw anything about him other than the other night, right, the night that he tweeted when he was passed by LeBron, right, I saw him 10 days ago with his daughter on the video now that everyone is seeing, where he's explaining something to her, and she sort of catches
on. It's a dad and a daughter. I mean,
and I saw that on my timeline 10 days ago. I'm like, oh, Kobe Bryant at a game, cool. I wonder what game. I didn't, it was just part of a highlight package,
right?
But straight enough, him and his daughter, and I didn't know he had 4 daughters. There's a lot I didn't know about Kobe.
Sure.
I wasn't all that interested in Kobe Bryant, right?
And that's fine.
So in the same way, when Neil Peart dies, someone like you that might not have been the biggest Rush fan would run and say, "Let me learn more about this person." I thought it was fascinating that daughter was the daughter that perished with him, because that was the one that I actually saw, like on the video from 10 days ago, that he took her to basketball games and they were talking basketball, and that unto itself, that's neat. That reminds you of you and your dad, or me and my dad.
Sure.
And, that Kobe was a regular dad and taking his daughter to play ball.
Yeah, and I think that's one thing that, for as much as you can talk about 15 years ago, I guess longer than that, 2003, I guess it was, with the sexual assault allegations. And look, that's something that can't be completely ignored or anything like that. Shouldn't be ignored.
I certainly didn't ignore it.
But by all accounts, so many people talking about how much he loved being a father. I mean, he's been an advocate for women's sports. He's talked about the WNBA, and he's talked about women having that platform, and that it should be on a more equal level, where women's sports should get more attention and more respect, and to be an advocate for that. But people talk about how much he just loved being a dad. I was talking to my brother-in-law the other night about this, and he's not an LA Lakers fan or anything like that, but he is a Philadelphia sports fan, so clearly there's somewhat of a connection there for anyone who loves Philly sports. But he said that Kobe Bryant post-playing career is someone that he actually gained a lot of respect for, that his wife would give Kobe a to-do list, and he'd wake up at 4 a.m. and do laundry and do all kinds of things. That way his schedule was cleared to have breakfast with his daughters and take them to school and do things like that. And you just hear that kind of thing. And look, that's not something that's atypical. There are lots of fathers and lots of mothers who can relate to that. We see a lot
of people
and who value that.
Well, look, you're now at that point. You're getting into your late 30s. I'm 51.
Mid-30s.
We've seen this with a lot of athletes. Watching Eric Weddle with his children, and just being around the team and seeing Torrey Smith, become a parent. Now that he doesn't even play anymore, but what social media has allowed that platform to be. But more than that, a lot of people. Bobby Zirkin was with us at Baltimore Positive last week. His kids are 10 and 12. He just doesn't want to do this anymore. You want to do something else that allows you to have that period of time with your children, right? Yeah. And we've seen a lot of athletes say enough's enough, because I've taken away from my children. Now it's time to go and spend time with my children and take them to school every day and tie their shoelaces and do all the stuff that when you're an athlete, it is a very selfish existence, because it needs to be.
Yeah, it has to be.
Tom Brady,
physically you're not there.
He wants to be with his kids. He wants to be with his hot model wife who makes $1 billion and all that stuff. But the football thing's like, it's not a 40-hour-a-week gig, and it's not I get 4 weeks off for vacation, or I take the weekends off, or there's none of that. And same thing with parenting. Parenting doesn't take a minute off either.
Yeah, and
as someone who was a young parent and a single parent and raised my son alone, I get it.
And that's where I think it is interesting, because you have this individual, whether you loved Kobe Bryant or rooted against him, the competitive drive that he had, to the point where he would ruffle feathers of teammates and sometimes coaches. And, he was that obsessed with winning. Then to now see, by all accounts, what his post-playing career life was like, where he was all in about being a father. I mean, there's something to that, again, I think it's so relatable. I think it's a reminder of all of our mortality here on Earth. That it's a very limited time that we have here on Earth.
Yeah, we're all theoretically one helicopter ride away, right?
Yeah,
literally. Right.
I mean, it's and it's scary. It's sad. And it's not just a celebrity or he was rich or anything like that. I never met him. I think it's just a reminder that life is incredibly precious, and it can just be like that it's gone. And that's what's so tough about something like this when you're talking about a larger-than-life icon, at least in the eyes of many people. You know, it was the same thing with Michael Jackson 11 years ago.
Suddenly, yeah.
Yeah, I mean, Michael Jackson 11 years ago. I mean,
Michael Jackson was going out on tour. I mean,
yeah. I mean,
Clemente would be we talked about Thurman Munson, but I guess in the moments after we didn't mention Clemente, and that obviously happened at a young point in my life. And
right.
My father always referred to that, and you always remember it was New Year's Eve and all of that.
And we definitely overlooked Clemente. There's no question about that. And some of the other names we mentioned, Roy Halladay and Sean Taylor. But Clemente, someone I
mentioned Leonard Skinner or Stevie Ray Vaughan, or Helicopters and again, John Denver,
and what's the commonality here is whether we're talking musicians, athletes. These are individuals who transcended. Kobe Bryant was not just known to NBA fans, not just known to sports fans. I mean,
well, as we saw with the Grammys,
the reaction. I mean, with
I didn't realize he was such a rapper. I didn't realize
musical
he had music.
artist. Yeah, I mean, it's.
I've never heard a Kobe Bryant song.
Well, but a lot of people who are
I've heard Deion
musicians,
Sanders sing. Though we played that.
Yeah. A lot of people who are musicians and rappers and artists in that way, they drew inspiration from him because of his competitive drive. So I mean, it's just again, you mentioned Clemente, some of the others we've mentioned. It's just when something like this happens, I mean, it's jarring. It's shocking. I mean, even waking up Monday morning.
We're here to talk football.
Yeah, well, and we'll talk plenty about it. But I think everyone who's here, again, the Super Bowl is one of those iconic sporting events. I mean, it's the biggest sporting event we have in our country, one of the biggest in the world. But it's individuals like a Kobe Bryant, someone who has that kind of presence, someone who reaches that kind of stage, that we celebrate in the Super Bowl. Maybe not every year. But, Tom Brady has been that guy in recent years, and Joe Montana in the 80s. In the 90s, it was the Cowboys and the 49ers, Steve Young, Jerry Rice. I mean, so when it's someone who, again, so young and you assume so much more to give, to their family, to anyone else they influence, and then they're just gone. Like, it's very difficult to grasp the finality of that. I mean, we talk on a very insignificant level about the Ravens losing in the playoff game and how abrupt that is, but
it was abrupt.
That's a story like this compared to that, and how abrupt and the finality of someone just being gone. They're here 1 minute and they're gone the next. I mean, it's just I think it's very difficult for us as flawed human beings to fully grasp that, and I think that's what makes it so difficult for so many people. Yeah,
weird Monday here to start our Radio Row experience. All of our Super Bowl 54 coverage brought to you by several of our new friends. First off, Liberty Pure Solutions, acleanwater.com, 1-800-CLEAN-WATER. We got the water on the set. The water down here is a little tainted in Miami. It's a little weird. I always tell a story. When Lee Steinberg comes by, I'm going to tell a tainted water story. But this is clean water, well water. They do boiler services, water analysis, treatment. If you've got a well, if you're wondering what's in it, let them show you, and they'll give you a free water analysis. Liberty Pure Solutions, you'll be hearing about them all year long. Also, our friends at Raskin Global. I'm wearing my Raskin Global shirt. Leonard Raskin gave me a shirt to wear down here. Empowering people to choose their financial future for over 33 years. He also gave me some investments. I'll pull the investments out when my breath gets bad from the coffee. No offense to the Royal Farms coffee, but you need a mint after that. And Sporticulture also, I want to give Court some love. Because Court said, man, do you want flowers on the set and stuff? And they have rules about what you can and can't put up, because obviously there's a lot of stuff going on down here if you're on our YouTube or WNSTV Facebook channel. And Court said, well, what if I sent you the little planners like you have with Art Modell on your set? And I'm like, I don't know if I really want a Chiefs and a 49ers, I don't know how I feel about this. Yeah. We're literally right underneath. If the banner fell, it would split our table in half, And it's a gigantic 54 banner. But I'm choosing the over your shoulder. The 35 is right here, and the 47 is right over top of you. And Super Bowl 3 is also over there, and it's in the distance, so it has a little, we want to keep that. But I see 5 over here as well. So there's a lot of Baltimore over your shoulder, and there's a lot of empty space here in the beginning, but it's going to fill up. I was going to say this about the Kobe Bryant thing and news here. The National Football League purposely has every team not create any news this week, right?
Right.
Literally. Major League Baseball, they might make some news this week. I remember when the Kirk Cousins trade went down.
Yeah.
When we were in Minnesota after he was walking around on Radio Row all day, 2 hours before the deal happened. And that was kind of a tecton, and that's just a couple of football teams with a quarterback moving,
sure.
right? And it was in the hometown there. To have this kind of a story drop on a Sunday, a Monday morning at the beginning of Super Bowl week, I don't know what the tale of it is. It's not. This isn't the O.J. Chase. We know what happened. We don't know how it happened.
Yeah, I mean, we'll hear.
But I wonder what the long tail of this is in a 24-hour news cycle where I think this is going to transcend. I think we'll be talking about this 3, 4, 5 days from now because I think other pieces of this are going to come out about helicopters being grounded in fog and all of that in the aftermath. But people want to talk about Kobe Bryant. Like, they just do. I've seen that in the first couple of hours in the aftermath of it. Everyone has something to say, and probably the way I felt when Neil Peart died 2 weeks ago. I just wanted to just sit and listen to music and interact with other people that cared enough about it to feel sort of mopey about it or however gloomy or wistful or sad. And obviously in this case we're talking about a daughter and other family members. And from a Baltimore perspective, we're all running around with the out the belly part of that. And the Rochester Red Wings had to put out a note to say that
not related
to Joe Altobelli. So, but from a news, I can't imagine that it's 27 Super Bowls. Yeah, I don't remember anything that happened during a Super Bowl week that is going to overshadow. I mean, we have a president that should be going to prison, so that's going on too this week, in the backdrop of all of this. But from a sports lifestyle, tragedy, suddenness, it's taken the breath away, I think, of everyone here. It really has.
I think so. And keep in mind, now, we do this as part of our livelihood, but most people, the purpose of sports is what?
Escapism.
It's your escape.
Yeah.
It's your escape from everyday life and tragedy you might experience. Or, I can think back to 15 years ago when I lost my dad. One of the more gratifying but also difficult moments of that week was going to that following Sunday's Ravens game. It was a very cathartic experience for me, but it was very difficult as well. So, from that context, anyone who goes through any trials in life, you have an individual who many people took joy in watching, and now that person's gone. It's something that's strange. I'm looking at WNST.net right now. The Pro Bowl game story that the Associated Press wrote, you can check it out right now at our website.
It's about Kobe Bryant.
The headline is Pro Bowlers remember Kobe Bryant as AFC tops NFC again. That sounds very...
Well, Lamar talked about it in the aftermath.
Right. It's very... again, you're talking about an individual who transcends. You had major professional sports having nothing to do with the NBA putting out statements about an individual. And look, we'll get into Super Bowl and there'll be plenty of excitement, and come Sunday, most of the focus will be on the game. But I would assume there's going to be a moment of silence before the game. I think you're going to see players pregame tributes, things like that. Guys with number 8 or number 24.
Well, look at the
Lakers
Clippers game on Tuesday night, right?
Yeah. There are a lot of layers to this. And again, someone who maybe you or me, we might not look at him in the same way that 25-year-olds getting ready to play in the Super Bowl for either side viewed Kobe Bryant growing up. Anyone who was an NBA fan over the last 20 years, and especially athletes. When you're someone who reaches that level of being a professional, you draw inspiration from someone like a Kobe Bryant as far as what they are like on the competitive arena, and that's going to impact you. So I think that's going to be something that players are going to continue to talk about this week. And, of course, we'll hear details as far as memorial service, whatever the plans might be as far as arrangements related with the family and people paying their respects. But it's definitely something that is going to be a part of the story this week. And I don't think that's terribly surprising given the stature that he enjoyed.
We are down on Radio Row. We're at Super Bowl 54. We've got our Kansas City Chiefs planner and our San Francisco 49er planner here. Patrick Mahomes on the wall over there, and Jimmy Garoppolo. We got lots of guests that are going to be here. We're sort of setting the scene for stuff. As you know, we take Radio Row pretty seriously, and Super Bowl week here pretty seriously. You'll want to be checking out all of our cool sponsors, including Full Circle Tire and Auto. Dave's been doing it up there in Harford County a long, long time. 410-676-CARS. You can like them out at Full Circle Tire and Auto on Facebook. They're up in North Fountain Green Road in Bel Air. I don't know what to say because we go from summer to winter at home so quickly. Right now it's winter to do all the winterization. But who knows? We'll be golfing out at Compass Point before the weekend is over. Also want to give a shout-out to Steve DeCastro and our dear friends at Roost Chris, Pier 5. Pikesville, Odenton, if you get down to Annapolis, please come back downtown to Pier 5. We'd love to have you downtown. That's part of our initiative with Baltimore Positive. We have some stuff with Bobby Zirkin. I mentioned that a little earlier, as well as Martin O'Malley. You can check that out. But all week long, we're down here in Miami, and I'm going to get a little. You're going to get a little sand between your toes before it's all over, right?
A little bit, yeah. Why not? 70s all week. I mean, you mentioned winter. It feels like summer here, and I can't say that I mind. I mean, it's.
Well, we already are to somber beginning with the Kobe Bryant thing.
Sure.
And the whole week I keep looking up and thinking, Ravens could have been here. It does feel like it was a long, long time ago that we lost to the Titans. And everybody I know that I've talked to feels the distance of it. And we're still, almost a week out on the game, right? The actual Super Bowl. It happens really quickly. It's really harsh. Mm-hmm. And then you move on a little bit and you watch some football games and then and here we are. I don't think anybody's not watching this Super Bowl, but there's something about you and I being immersed in it here that really does give you a feeling of what if.
Oh, there's no question. They were the best team in the league this year. They were the best
team. And we're going to hear that repeatedly on this set, right?
There's what happened a couple weeks ago doesn't change that. It certainly cast some more disappointing context as far as how it finished, but they still went 14-2. They still set all these records. They still had 12 guys playing in the Pro Bowl, and maybe seeing Lamar Jackson and some of those guys have a good time in Orlando. And look, I get it, it's the Pro Bowl. Who cares?
I wasn't having fun. But I'm glad you guys were having fun at the Pro Bowl. It was no fun for me.
But to see,
and I'm in Miami.
But I think to see that, okay, maybe they were really bummed for a couple of days, and I know Lamar Jackson did some interviews in Orlando this past week and acknowledged that, but you do have to move on.
Well, you don't want Lamar going to Orlando and being a prick because he lost, or in a bad. You want everybody being in a good. But and I'm half kidding, but they were having too much fun for me. I was not having fun.
But
still not having fun.
They also, I think they each got.
That's it. I'm not having any fun this week.
I think they each got $70,000 for winning the Pro Bowl, so that helps. But
no fun.
But look,
Vancouver, no fun for you either.
But hey, you have to move on. I mean, before you know it, it'll be combine time and free agency and the draft, and then hey, come mid-April, everyone shows back up in Owings Mills, and regardless of what happens with free agency and tough decisions that they do have to make, this is going to be a pretty darn good football team coming back, regardless of what happens in that regard. So there's still, I've already seen early odds makers, or early odds for next year have the Ravens. I've seen them as the Super Bowl favorite on some publication.
Yeah, well, so Lamar better win a playoff game then, right? Well, that's where we are. Hey, it's another year where Lamar didn't win a playoff game, so that's
not just Lamar, but hey, John Harbaugh has won playoff wins in Super Bowl 47, and I'm not saying that to say he's on the hot seat, but I'm just saying, hey, it's time to.
Everybody who does this for a living that's going to sit here is going to, that is where we are,
sure.
And now there is some pressure mounting, I think, for them to at least win the division. I mean, right? I mean, they have to win the division.
Well, and they're very clearly going to be favored to win the division. And look, Ben Roethlisberger will be back, and we get that.
They should be a better team next year. Theoretically, they weren't built to be 14-2 this year. They were built to be 10-6 this year.
But it's not always linear, and that's what we have to remember. Linear. And they might be.
Ask Cam Newton.
From a true talent standpoint, they might be better next year, but that might translate to 11-5 depending.
Remember
on
how good the Browns were last year?
Oh yeah, yeah. They might be better. I mean, sure,
from a pure talent standpoint.
But you never know what's going to happen. And again, that's why it is difficult to move on. That's why it is difficult to acknowledge that it's a missed opportunity. It was, and I'm not just gonna brush over that and say it wasn't. It was a colossal missed opportunity. Not because they aren't going to have another chance.
As
next
I stare
year,
at this Kansas City Chiefs planter, thanks Court. sending us the Chiefs. I mean, the reminders will be there all week.
It could be worse. That could be a Tennessee Titan helmet.
I guess that's my point. The reminders you're going to continue to get reminded until the second week of the playoffs next year after another bye week and a home game. You better hope it's that way. You better hope you're not getting on the bus to Buffalo in week 1, right? I mean, I'm just saying, right?
But that might not be the worst thing. You never know. I think, we've talked about the 2011 to 2012 with the Ravens. Think back to Pittsburgh, 2004, Roethlisberger's first year. Remember, they went on that winning streak. They didn't win. They ultimately didn't win.
If they're going on the road, it means they lost 6 times
But then remember what happened. The following year, that was a wild card team. They won the Super Bowl. So you can, as much as
last year's has nothing to do with next year ever. Like, it really doesn't.
It doesn't, but it's also a reminder that just because you're the number 1 seed in 14-2, that doesn't. Okay, on paper your odds are better than to win the Super Bowl, but that doesn't mean the number 6 seed or the number 4 seed is disqualified because they're not the number 1 seed. We've seen that. We've seen that here in Baltimore twice. So I think that's just a reminder that there's no guarantees, and what happens next year, just because we say they might be better next year, and look, I'll hear that argument that they could be better next year, but I'm also not going to predict them to be 15-1. So that's where it does come down to new set of circumstances, new schedule, new variables, potential injuries. I mean, I think the injury piece is interesting. John Harbaugh talked about it at his season-ending press conference that this was the best year they've had in terms of injuries, although I think that's debatable. Go back and look at last year and see how few injuries they had, other than Joe Flacco missing a few games.
Well, whatever they're doing on the sports science and, pliability,
nutrition and strength and conditioning programs,
avocado ice cream,
but also some
probably
luck.
Can get that in Miami.
Also some luck. Yeah, I don't care how much of that stuff you're doing. If the wrong guy crashes into your knee and your foot's planted in the ground, that's not going to turn out very well for you. So you have to hope that some of the good fortune and some of the things they've done to curtail injuries the last couple of years, you hope that continues. But, again, you don't know. And, again, that's why it's so frustrating that it ended in the way that it did, because they didn't even get here. They didn't even get to – I remember talking to one of my buddies last Sunday about the AFC Championship. He lives in Federal Hill, and he said how quiet it was down.
It was
downtown.
quiet. I was in the Cross Street Market an hour before the game.
And he was just thinking about what that would have been like.
Thanks, Arsh. See you. Appreciate the Cross Street Market, but
what that would have been like
had a good idea.
Had they been getting ready to play at 3:00 that afternoon. So it's tough, but.
We got to move on.
You have to move on. I mean, you do.
I'm on to Tampa. We're going to Tampa next year.
Go.
I got Cuckoo and Nuts. He's Luke Jones. I'm Nestor. We're down here. We're all brought to you by our friends at the Curio Wellness Center in Timonium, the holistic spa with the top-of-the-line products, including cannabis, CBD, and the education that goes along with it. Shout out to all of our Baltimore Positive sponsors. First off, we had a great time down at Fadley's. I got my Fadley's cup around here. Bill gave me one to bring down to Miami. I'm going to drink. I brought my purple energy drink, so I'm going to drink the purple Kool-Aid all week long.
Mojo there.
I found the bed for Pica to sleep in, too, over here in the corner. We'll talk about that a little later on as well. Free bed right
there
here.
You go.
It would be like that Tom Hanks movie where you never leave the airport.
Ah, that's right. What's that called? I can't remember. I'll be honest, I never saw it.
Terminal?
The Terminal, you're right.
Yeah, there you go. Thank you very much. See, and I haven't seen a movie in 20 years.
I'm sure people are going to be yelling at me for not seeing that, but sorry. I saw Castaway. I've seen plenty of Tom Hanks movies.
I saw Bosom Buddies.
There you go.
I saw Forrest Gump.
It's true.
I think Lev Parnas is
Forrest
the Forrest
Gump is one of I've probably seen that movie 20 times.
The modern era. Nasty at WNST.net finds me. He's Baltimore Luke out on Twitter and on Facebook and on LinkedIn and Snapchat and Instagram. We're on our YouTube WNSTV channel. We're streaming down here. All of it brought to you by our friends at Raskin Global as well as our friends at Liberty Pure Solutions. Find them out at acleanwater.com. The buyatoyota.com audio vault there 24 hours a day. Our morning newspaper ships digitally each and every morning, now with Baltimore Positive stuff, including our friends from Jennings, where we had a delicious Jennings burger the other day. It's restaurant week as well. Don Moeller would be upset with me if I don't mention that because he was at State Fair with his granddaughter the other day. So big appreciation for all of our sponsors sending us down here. We're in Miami Beach all week long. Luke's here. I'm here. The Ravens are not here.
Ravens are not.
They're not here. We are WNST.net, AM 1570, and WNST Towson, Baltimore, and we never stop talking Baltimore sports from Miami Beach.